So this is a video that I've been really planning on making for a long time and just never got around to, and since the topic feels relevant again, I figure I'm just gonna go ahead and make it today. But basically, the fact that the Monkees still aren't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame just bothers the fandom as a whole, and a whole lot of other people too, and yet they still don't get taken seriously enough to be nominated for it. And I know that the nomination, the process doesn't work by statistics or anything, or by a popularity vote, but I'll get to that later on in the video. I'll do that towards the end, but I came up with a list of reasons why I feel that they should be relevant enough to be in there, but yeah. Anyway, let's just jump right into it. First off, they were not a fake, prefabricated band. So, okay, naturally, when they very first started out, they were four random guys thrown together for a TV show as actors, not musicians. However, they were musicians in their own right, with the exception of Davey, who is a performer at least, so I mean, that's still in the same realm, but yeah, they kind of formed their own group as time went on, and it didn't take them very long to become a real band. I mean, everybody likes to cite Headquarters as that, but no, the 1967 tour, they had to learn to play their own instruments in the songs and perform them live without help. That was the very first year, was it not? So, if that's not a real band, what is? Yeah, it just blows my mind that people are like, nah, they're a fake band. It's like, for about a minute there, that was true, but ultimately, beyond that point, not so much. And then everything from Headquarters onward, they had fought for the creative and artistic license to be able to play their own instruments on the albums, which they had wanted from the start, but they didn't have that right yet. They eventually overthrew Don Kirshner and got that right, but they'd only done 2 albums where they didn't play their own instruments, so the fact that everybody uses that as the big argument is kind of a bullshit reason, if you ask me. And all 4 of them are brilliant songwriters and performers in their own right, both collectively as a group and in their solo careers. They should be taken more seriously than they are. They made a ton of albums in a relatively short time span. I mean, they started in '67, am I right? And they went to just, like, the very, very start of the '70s, and they cranked out about 12 albums in that tiny little chunk of time. I mean, for any group, that's quite a feat to do, but these guys, who weren't even being taken seriously as a band, managed to do it. And the first ones were wildly popular. After the TV show ended, the popularity and sales kind of slumped, because the name wasn't out there as much, and people weren't really aware that there was a new album at the time, and then Peter left, and da-da-da-da-da, you know how it goes. I mean, I don't have to tell you the history of the band, we're all fans here. So, yeah, it's very impressive that they had that big a discography in that short a time, and then went on to do more later, too, so. Then there's the fact that the first 5 albums went platinum. The first 2 albums went 5 times platinum, which is a big frigging deal. If you don't know what that means, look it up, but it's impressive. Now, the next 2 went 2 times platinum, and the Birds, the Bees, and the Monkees went just 1 time platinum. But that is a lot of record sales, even for just the first 5 albums. And that's not even counting the other sales, but those are the ones that went platinum. The first 4 albums reached number 1 on the Billboard charts, and the 5th one reached number 3, which still not bad, still nothing to sneeze at. And in 1967, they had 3 albums that hit number 1 on the Billboard charts. The only other band to ever do that was the Beatles. Just saying. I would bring up the whole fact that the Monkees bumped Sgt. Pepper out of the number 1 position on the Billboard charts, but there's some controversy over whether or not that fact is true, so I'm gonna leave that one up to you guys because it's a little bit dubious, so I'm not gonna state it as concrete fact necessarily, because there is the whole argument of whether or not it's true, but the rest of these facts absolutely are true. The only other act period at all since those 2 bands managed to do that was able to get 3 number albums in 1 year was Glee. Do they really count? I don't think so. So basically the only 2 bands to have ever done it are the Beatles and the Monkees. And given the Beatles are the most famous band of all time, that kind of puts Monkees on a pretty high pedestal to be able to reach that same level, you know? Just pointing it out there. I'd also like to point out that the Monkees are not a Beatles ripoff band. I get so frustrated with this, and yet I will be the first to admit that most of growing up, I was guilty of believing it too. But I think I'm going to save that topic for its own video another day. But yeah, they were very much their own thing. They reformed in the 80s, when the show was being shown in syndication again, and they got wildly popular to the point where they did another album and another couple of tours, and they went over really well and brought a whole new generation of fans to it. And then they did it again 10 years later with Just Us, and had the special on ABC and everything. It was back-to-back with Davy Jones being on an episode of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which was also very popular. I still love that episode, but again, another topic for another day. But, yeah, it just, every time they come back, they get really popular all over again. They have staying power. The albums are timeless. They're classics. Why do more people not take them more seriously? I mean, they're just such a feel-good band. Who would dislike them, you know? Not to mention the level of devotion in the fandom is unparalleled anywhere. I have never seen another fandom that is as wildly devoted to the Monkees as the Monkees fandom is. They were also just really influential with the style, and their show, and their music, and they inspired a lot of other performers in a lot of different ways, and I think that's pretty noteworthy, too, for being relevant enough for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Not to mention, much less deserving artists have made it in. I'm not going to name names because I don't want to start a shitstorm, but, I think y'all can draw your own conclusions on that, just throwing it out there. So, why exactly can they not be in? The criteria for the nomination is really vague. I'm going to read you this snippet that is off the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame website. Okay, let's bring it up. Okay. Leaders in the music industry joined together in 1983 to establish the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Foundation. One of the founder's many functions is to recognize the contributions of those who have had a significant impact on the evolution, development, and perpetuation of rock and roll by inducting them into the Hall of Fame. So far, sounds like they're relevant, just saying. Artists become eligible for induction 25 years after the release of their first record. Yeah, they got that. Criteria include the influence and significance of the artist's contributions to the development and the perpetuation of rock and roll. Throwing it out there again, they fit the bill. Then there is also an open letter from the president of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame further talking about this. Nomination and induction into the Hall of Fame is not about popularity, record sales, which label the group is on, or anything other than the process below. The love for, the evaluation of, and the impact of any artist are subjective questions to be answered by the nominators and the voters. Unlike baseball, football, basketball, or hockey, statistics are not relevant. Please read below. The entire nomination and induction process is coordinated by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Foundation in New York City. Individuals can be inducted in 4 categories: performer, early influence, non-performer, and sidemen. The only formal criteria for the performance category is that an artist has to have had their first record 25 years ago. That said, candidates are reviewed and discussed relative to their impact on the music that we broadly call rock and roll. The innovation and influence of these artists is also critical. Gold records, #1 hits, and million sellers are really not appropriate for standards for evaluation. Yeah. So they do make it tricky, because most of my arguments for why I think they would be eligible, they claim, yeah, those don't matter. So I'd like to know, in their eyes, what does matter then exactly that they supposedly don't have? Because I think whatever they could come up with on that, they have. And this is why they're so vague about it, because they know darn well if they actually admitted what they claim as the qualifications for who they actually nominate, we'd probably throw a shit fit and have a petition to sign go around, which, I mean, there already is one going around, to be fair, but, there'd be another one going around, probably even bigger and more widely signed, if we knew specifics, because then we could argue those specifics and why they fit here. But apparently it is not up to us, and it's just really frustrating as a fan for why they're not in there. I'm sure it's frustrating for the members of the group themselves that they're not in there when, again, much less qualified people have made it in, especially in recent years. Yeah, so, just, again, it's frustrating. I would like to know any points you think that I may have missed down in the comments. Let's talk about it.